I found the pregnancy test in her secret apartment, the one I didn't know existed, with the keys I wasn't supposed to find, and the list of lies she'd rehearsed to destroy me. She said we'd talk when she got back from her trip, but I made sure that conversation never happened. My name is Levi Henderson. I'm 41 years old, and I used to think I had it all figured out. A thriving e-commerce store selling handcrafted jewelry, candles, and home decor that pulled in about $450,000 a year. A beautiful wife who seemed to love what we'd built together. A modest house in Portland with a garden Natalie spent hours tending. I thought we were solid. Turns out, I was the only one who believed that. It started small, little things that didn't quite add up. She'd get texts at dinner, and her whole body would tense up before she'd casually flip the phone face down. She started taking calls in the garage, claiming it was supplier negotiations that required quiet. She began traveling more for product sourcing trips, even though we'd always handled that together. When I'd offer to come along, she'd wave me off with some excuse about needing solo time to think creatively. I'm not proud to admit it, but I ignored every single red flag. I told myself she was stressed about the business expansion we'd been planning. I convinced myself that after 11 years, we'd just settled into a comfortable rhythm where we each needed our own space. I made excuses because the alternative was too painful to consider. Then came the trip. Last Tuesday, Natalie announced she was flying to Santa Fe for a 4-day artisan retreat. She said it was last minute, that one of her supplier contacts had gotten her a spot, and that it would really help inspire our fall product line. She kissed me goodbye at 4:30 p.m., told me she loved me, and said we'd talk when she got back about some things that had been on her mind. We'll talk when I get back, Natalie said, standing by the door with her carry-on. I think we need to have a real conversation about us, about where we're going. Those words should have terrified me. Instead, I just nodded like an idiot and asked if she had her phone charger. Her flight was scheduled to depart at 6:15 p.m. By 6:30, I was standing in our bedroom, staring at that locked drawer. I don't know what possessed me to look. Maybe it was the way she'd hesitated before leaving, like she wanted to say something else but thought better of it. Maybe it was the guilt I'd seen flash across her face when I'd hug her goodbye. I found the key in her jewelry box, tucked inside a velvet pouch I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the drawer. Inside, I found a different life, one that didn't include me. 2 sets of keys attached to a keychain that read, Riverside Lofts Unit 8B. A debit card I'd never seen before, attached to an account statement showing transactions I knew nothing about. Receipts from restaurants and cities she'd never mentioned visiting. And then, the papers. The first document was titled, Things to Remember, Final Conversation. It was Natalie's handwriting, neat and methodical as always. Tell him it's about personal growth, not about him. Mention the retreat as a turning point for clarity. Stay calm, compassionate but firm. Don't bring up Kyle unless he asks directly. Frame it as mutual. We've both changed. Have the apartment lease ready to show I'm serious. Kyle. The name hit me like a fist to the gut. I kept reading, finding printed emails between Natalie and someone named Kyle Richards. The messages went back 18 months. 18 months of, I can't wait to see you again, and he doesn't understand me like you do, and just a few more months and we can stop hiding. There were photos printed out and stored in a manila envelope. Natalie and Kyle on a beach I didn't recognize. Natalie and Kyle at a candlelit dinner. Natalie and Kyle in front of the Riverside Lofts, her head on his shoulder, both of them smiling like they'd just won the lottery. The last document was a consultation agreement with a divorce attorney dated 3 weeks ago. She'd already mapped out how to divide our business assets, which products she'd claim as her designs, and which shared accounts she planned to drain before filing. I sat on the edge of our bed, holding the evidence of my wife's betrayal, and something inside me shifted. Not broke, not shattered, just shifted, like a switch flipping from warm to cold. She'd said we'd talk when she got back. She'd had it all choreographed. The retreat story, the compassionate speech, the clean exit where she got to be the brave one following her heart, while I played the understanding husband who let her go. But as I sat there, surrounded by the ruins of what I thought was my marriage, I made a decision. She wanted to talk when she got back? Fine. Except that conversation was never going to happen. Not the way she planned it. Not even close. The address on the keychain led me to the other side of Portland, near the river. Riverside Lofts was one of those modern buildings with floor-to-ceiling windows and a lobby that tried too hard to look expensive. I sat in my truck across the street for 10 minutes, just staring at the entrance, the keys heavy in my palm. Unit 8B was on the 3rd floor. I took the elevator up, my heartbeat loud in my ears. When I unlocked the door and stepped inside, I felt like I'd walked into someone else's life. Because I had. The apartment was small, but furnished with care. A gray couch I'd never seen before. Throw pillows that match curtains Natalie must have picked out. On the kitchen counter sat 2 coffee mugs, one with a large K printed on it, the other with like some twisted couple's gift set. I walked through slowly, taking it all in. The bedroom made my stomach turn. Natalie's robe hung on the back of the door, the same lavender one she'd told me she'd lost months ago. The closet held men's clothes, expensive button-downs, designer jeans, leather shoes that probably cost more than my truck payment. On the nightstand was a framed photo I'd never seen. Natalie and Kyle on a hiking trail, both grinning like idiots, mountains in the background. She looked happier than I'd seen her look in years. That hurt more than I expected. I found a drawer full of papers. Lease agreement in both their names, started 9 months ago. Utility bills they'd been splitting. Restaurant receipts from date nights I knew nothing about. And then I saw it. A handwritten note on expensive stationery. Nat, Chapter 14 reminded me of us. Read it when you get a chance. Can't wait for next weekend. Okay. Next to it was a book. Bookmark placed at Chapter 14. I didn't open it. I didn't want to know what part of their story they were romanticizing while I was home alone, believing in a marriage that apparently ended months ago. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Every room, every receipt, every piece of evidence that my wife had been living a double life. Then I left, locking the door behind me like I'd never been there. Back home, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. I labeled it Henderson Business Assets, Complete Documentation. Then I started uploading everything. Photos from the apartment, screenshots of emails I'd found, bank statements showing joint account withdrawals I could now trace to this secret life. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I called Rachel Moore, Natalie's older sister. We'd never been particularly close. Rachel had always seemed a bit skeptical of our marriage, like she could see cracks I was too blind to notice. Now I understood why. Levi, Rachel answered, surprise in her voice. It was past 10 p.m. I need to ask you something, I said, keeping my voice steady. And I need you to be honest with me. There was a long pause. Then Rachel sighed, and I knew. She knew something. It's Kyle, isn't it? Rachel said quietly. Those 3 words confirmed everything. How long have you known? I asked Rachel, my voice flat. Rachel was quiet for a moment. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, choosing her words carefully. About Kyle specifically? Maybe 6 months, she finally said. But I knew something was wrong before that. Natalie would stay with me sometimes after her trips. She'd say she needed to decompress before coming home to you. I didn't push because I thought maybe you two were having normal marriage problems. Normal marriage problems. Like I was part of the issue. Like this was something we'd both contributed to. She'd talk about him. I asked. Not directly. But she'd be on her phone constantly, smiling at texts. One time her screen lit up, and I saw a message preview. It said, "Can't wait to wake up next to you every morning." That's when I knew. And you didn't think to tell me? Rachel sighed. Levi, I'm sorry. I really am. But she's my sister. I thought maybe it was just a phase, that she'd come to her senses. And honestly, I was scared that if I told you and I was wrong, it would destroy your marriage for nothing. Well, it's destroyed anyway, I said. She's been planning this for months. Maybe longer. I told Rachel about the apartment, the divorce lawyer, the detailed notes about how to break the news to me like I was a child who needed careful handling. Rachel listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was silent for a long moment. What are you going to do? Rachel asked quietly. I don't know yet, I said, but I'm not going to sit around and wait for her to come home and read me her script. Levi, listen to me. I know you're hurt. You have every right to be. But don't do anything you'll regret. Don't let anger make you into someone you're not. I'm not angry, I said, and I meant it. I'm just done being the guy who doesn't see what's right in front of him. After I hung up with Rachel, I sat at our dining room table and made a list. Not an emotional one, a practical one. Everything I needed to do before Natalie's flight landed in 4 days. First, I called our business bank and initiated a transfer. Half of everything in our joint account moved to a new account I opened in my name only. It wasn't theft. It was protection. If Natalie had been siphoning money to fund her secret life with Kyle, I needed to make sure there was something left to fight for. Second, I gathered every document related to our business. Articles of incorporation showing I'd founded the company 2 years before we got married. Tax returns proving I'd invested my inheritance from my father into the startup capital. Design patents filed under my name for our best-selling jewelry pieces. Natalie had contributed, sure. But legally, I could prove this business existed because of me. Third, I went back to the apartment. This time I wasn't just looking. I was collecting. I found a stack of greeting cards Kyle had given Natalie over the past year. Birthday cards, Valentine's cards, an anniversary card celebrating 1 year of us. I took photos of everything. Then I took one of the cards itself. Evidence. In a bathroom, I found something that made my blood run cold. A positive pregnancy test, tucked in the cabinet behind bottles of lotion and face cream. The date on the box said it was purchased 3 weeks ago. Natalie was pregnant, or had been. I tried to remember the last time we'd been intimate. It had been over a month, maybe closer to 6 weeks, which meant if she was pregnant, it wasn't mine. Monday morning, I walked into the office of Patricia Brennan, the best divorce attorney in Portland according to 3 different Google searches and 2 referrals from guys at my gym who'd been through it. Patricia was in her mid-50s, sharp-eyed, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like someone who didn't waste time on sympathy, which was exactly what I needed. "Mr. Henderson," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "I understand you have a situation." "That's one way to put it," I said. I laid out everything. The locked drawer, the secret apartment, the emails the divorce attorney Natalie had already consulted. I showed her the photos on my phone, the financial records, the pregnancy test. Patricia took notes without comment, her expression never changing. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. "Your wife has been planning this for a while," Patricia said. "The fact that she consulted an attorney 3 weeks ago means she's serious. But here's the good news. She hasn't filed yet. That gives us an advantage." "What kind of advantage?" "You file first. Today. We request immediate temporary orders for the business assets, claim financial misconduct, and petition for exclusive use of the marital home. By the time she lands from her trip, she'll be served." "Can we do that?" "We can," Patricia said. "And we should. From what you've shown me, your wife has been systematically preparing to position herself as the victim and you as the problem. We flip that narrative before she has a chance to control it." I thought about Natalie's list. Her careful instructions about staying calm, being compassionate but firm. She'd been planning to manage me like a business transaction. "Do it," I said. Patricia nodded. "I'll need you to sign some documents. We'll also need to discuss your business. You said it's jointly owned." "Yes, but I started it before we got married. I have documentation." "Good. We'll argue for separate property status. Oregon is an equitable distribution state, not community property, so we have flexibility. But the stronger your documentation, the better." We spent the next 2 hours going through paperwork. I signed forms, provided bank statements, handed over copies of everything I'd found. By the time I left Patricia's office, divorce papers were being prepared and would be filed by end of business day. Natalie thought she had 4 days to enjoy her romantic getaway before coming home to deliver her rehearsed speech. She had no idea that by Wednesday morning, she'd be legally served with divorce papers at her hotel in Santa Fe. I drove home and started packing. Not her things. Mine. Patricia had advised me to stay in the house for now, to maintain possession, but I couldn't stomach the idea of sleeping in that bed for another night. Instead, I rented a short-term apartment across town. Small, furnished, anonymous. As I loaded boxes into my truck, my phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. "Hey babe, made to Santa Fe. Weather is beautiful. Missing you already." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She'd know soon enough that I wasn't the same person she'd left behind. Wednesday morning, I woke up in my temporary apartment to a series of missed calls from Natalie. 12 calls between 6 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. No voicemails, just repeated attempts to reach me, each one more desperate than the last. I knew what had happened. The process server had found her. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. "Levi, what is this? Why are you doing this? We need to talk. Please call me." I set the phone down and poured myself coffee. Let her panic. Let her feel what it's like when your whole world shifts without warning. Patricia had warned me this would happen. She'd said Natalie would try to control the narrative, would want to have the conversation on her terms where she could manage my emotions and steer the outcome. But that ship had sailed the moment she'd boarded a plane to spend 4 days with Kyle. My phone rang again. This time I answered. "Levi, thank God," Natalie said, her voice shaking. "What's happening?" "A man just showed up at my hotel and handed me divorce papers." "This can't be real." "It's real," I said calmly. "But we were going to talk when I got back. We were going to work through this like adults." "No, Natalie. You were going to talk. You were going to read me a script you'd written with your lawyer about personal growth and mutual change. But I found your notes. I know exactly what you had planned." Silence. Then her voice changed, became harder. "You went through my things. I found your locked drawer. The one with keys to an apartment I didn't know we had. The one with your divorce strategy all mapped out." "Levi, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You've been planning this for months. You consulted a lawyer 3 weeks ago. You've been living in a secret apartment with Kyle Richards for 9 months. Don't insult me by pretending this is sudden." Another silence. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted to something calculating. "If you just waited, we could have handled this civilly. Now you've made everything complicated." "I made it complicated. You're pregnant with another man's child, Natalie." I heard her breath catch. "How did you?" "I found a test. In the apartment. Your apartment with Kyle. So tell me, were you planning to pass that baby off as mine? Or were you going to drop that bomb during your compassionate speech?" "It's not what you think," she said quietly. "It never is. But here's what I know. I filed first. I have documentation of your affair. I have proof you were planning to claim our business as primarily yours when you knew I started it, before we married. I have everything, Natalie. So whatever story you were planning to tell, it's too late." "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice cold now. "You think you're being smart, but you're just making this harder on yourself. We'll see. Enjoy the rest of your trip with Kyle." I hung up before she could respond. What Natalie didn't know was that I'd done more than just file papers. I'd installed tracking software on our business laptop before she'd left, the one she always traveled with. I could see every keystroke, every email, every website she visited. And over the past 3 days, I'd watched her send 23 emails to Kyle. I'd seen her Google search how to fight a surprise divorce filing in Oregon. I'd watched her compose and delete 4 different messages to our business partners, trying to figure out how to spin this situation. She was scrambling. Good. But my phone buzzed with a new message, this time from an unknown number. "This is Kyle. We need to talk. What you're doing to Natalie is wrong. Back off." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back. "Tell me, Kyle, does your wife know where you've been spending your weekends?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response came. By Thursday afternoon, the news had spread. In the small world of Portland's artisan business community, word traveled fast. Natalie and I had been fixtures at craft fairs and vendor markets for years. People knew us as the couple who'd built something together. Now, they were learning the truth. Ashley Bennett, Natalie's closest friend and one of her business associates, called me Thursday evening. Ashley ran a boutique candle company and had been friends with Natalie since college. "Levi, I need to know what's going on," Ashley said. "Natalie called me crying, saying you blindsided her with divorce papers. But that doesn't sound like you. Did she tell you about Kyle?" I asked. Ashley went quiet. She mentioned she'd been seeing someone. She said you two had grown apart, and she'd met someone who understood her better. "She told you that?" "Yes. About 2 months ago. She said you were going to separate amicably, that you both wanted different things." "Ashley, she's been having an affair for over a year. She has a secret apartment with this guy. She's pregnant with his child. And she had a whole plan written out for how to divorce me and take most of our business. There was nothing amicable about any of it." I heard Ashley's breath catch. "She's pregnant. Was. I don't know if she still is. But she took a pregnancy test 3 weeks ago at the apartment she shares with Kyle." "Oh my God," Ashley whispered. "Levi, I had no idea. She made it sound like you'd both agreed to this, like it was mutual. It wasn't mutual. It was calculated. And she was planning to make me look like the bad guy while she rode off into the sunset with her backup plan." Ashley was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to protect what's mine. The business, my reputation, my sanity. That's all I can do. After I hung up with Ashley, I pulled up the tracking software again. Natalie had cut her trip short. She'd booked a flight home for tomorrow morning instead of Sunday. And she'd been exchanging increasingly frantic emails with Kyle. In one email, Kyle had written, "Your husband contacted me. He knows about us. He's threatening to tell my business partners. This is getting out of hand." Natalie's response, "Just stay calm. He's bluffing. He won't actually do anything. He's too passive. Too passive." That's what she thought. That I'd roll over and accept whatever version of events she fed me. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I opened my laptop and drafted an email. Not to Natalie. Not to Kyle. To our business email list. The one with 4,800 subscribers who bought from our online store. The subject line read, "Important business update from Levi Henderson." The body was simple. "Dear valued customers, I want to inform you of some changes to our business structure. Due to personal circumstances, I will be taking over sole operations of Henderson Handcrafts effective immediately. My soon-to-be ex-wife will no longer be involved in product design, customer service, or business decisions. I'm committed to maintaining the quality and integrity you've come to expect from us. Thank you for your continued support. Levi." I stared at the draft for 10 minutes. It was professional, factual. It didn't air dirty laundry or make accusations. But it sent a clear message. This business was mine, and Natalie's role in it was finished. I clicked send. Within an hour, my phone started ringing. Vendors wanting to know what happened. Customers expressing support. 3 people asked if Natalie was okay. I gave the same response to everyone. It's a private matter, but the business will continue without interruption. That night, Natalie called again. This time her voice was shaking with rage. "How dare you send that email?" she shouted. "You just humiliated me in front of our entire customer base." I stated facts, I said calmly. "You're no longer part of the business." "That's true, isn't it?" "You had no right." "I had every right. It's my business, Natalie. I started it. I built it. You help, yes. But legally, it's mine. And everyone needs to know who they're dealing with going forward." She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No regret. "This isn't over," she said. "You think you've won, but you haven't. I'll fight you for everything." "Then fight," I said. "But you're not fighting the man you left behind. You're fighting someone who finally sees you clearly." Natalie returned to Portland on Friday evening. I knew because Rachel called me, her voice tight with concern. "Levi, Natalie just showed up at my house," Rachel said. "She's a mess. She says she had a miscarriage yesterday, and you won't even talk to her." A miscarriage. Of course. The pregnancy that may or may not have been real was now a convenient tragedy she could use to paint me as heartless. "Did she tell you the baby wasn't mine?" I asked. Rachel went quiet. "She said you were accusing her of that, but that you were wrong. That the timing matched up with you too." "Rachel, the last time Natalie and I were intimate was 7 weeks ago. The pregnancy test I found was from 3 weeks ago. The math doesn't work unless she got pregnant a month after we stopped sleeping together." "Oh God," Rachel whispered. "She's lying to you. And she's using a miscarriage, real or not, to manipulate sympathy. Don't fall for it. Levi, I'm her sister. I have to be here for her. I understand that. But don't let her rewrite history. She planned this divorce months ago. She had everything mapped out. The only thing that changed was I found out before she could control the narrative." After hanging up with Rachel, I received a text from Natalie. "I lost our baby because of the stress you caused. I hope you can live with that." I stared at the message for a long time. The manipulation was transparent, but it still hit something in me. Not guilt, anger. She was weaponizing a pregnancy that wasn't mine, a miscarriage I had no way to verify, and trying to make me the villain in her story. I forwarded the text to Patricia with a note. "Document this. She's building a narrative." Patricia responded within minutes. "Already on it. This will backfire on her if she tries to use it in court. We have the timeline." That evening, I got a call from one of our suppliers, a woman named Margaret Reeves, who provided us with hand-blown glass beads from her studio in Seattle. "Levi, I just got a very strange email for Natalie," Margaret said. "She's asking me to send all future invoices and communications to her personal email only. She says you're going through a difficult time, and she's taking over business operations temporarily." "Margaret, that's not true. I sent an email to our customer list yesterday explaining that I'm taking sole control of the business. Natalie is trying to circumvent that." "I thought so. That's why I called you first. Should I forward your email? Please do. And Margaret, from now on, all business communication goes through me only. Natalie is no longer authorized to make purchasing decisions or represent the company. Understood. Levi, I'm sorry you're going through this. After Margaret forwarded the email, I saw what Natalie was doing. She'd sent similar messages to at least 8 of our key suppliers, trying to redirect business relationships to herself. She was attempting to build a parallel operation, cutting me out of my own company. I spent Friday night sending individual emails to every supplier, every vendor, every business partner we'd worked with over the past 6 years. I explained, professionally and factually, that I was the sole owner of Henderson Handcrafts, that Natalie was no longer associated with the business, and that any communications from her should be forwarded to me immediately. By Saturday morning, 3 more suppliers had contacted me with similar stories. Natalie was scrambling, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. But she'd underestimated how many of these business relationships were built on my reputation, not hers. Then I got an email that changed everything. It was from Kyle Richards. The subject line read, "We need to talk like men." The email was short. "Levi, this situation has gotten out of hand. Natalie is not in a good place emotionally. Whatever issues you two have, dragging me into it isn't fair. I'm asking you man to man to back off the aggressive legal tactics. Let's all be adults here." I read it 3 times, feeling my blood pressure rise with each pass. This man, who'd been sleeping with my wife in an apartment paid for with my money, was lecturing me about being an adult. I typed a response. "Kyle, you want to talk man to man? Here are the facts. You've been having an affair with a married woman for 18 months. You convinced her to hide money, rent a secret apartment, and plan a divorce behind my back. You got her pregnant, and now you're asking me to back off because she's emotional? Here's my counteroffer. Stay away from my business, stay away from my assets, and when this divorce is final, you can have whatever's left of her. But if you contact me again, I'll make sure every business associate you have knows exactly who you are." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Sunday morning, I drove to our house. Natalie's car wasn't there, which was intentional. I'd been monitoring the security system and knew she'd left an hour earlier. I had maybe 2 hours before she returned. I let myself in with my key and immediately noticed things were missing. The antique clock my father had left me, the framed photographs of my grandfather, a collection of silver dollars I'd inherited from my uncle. All gone. I went to the garage and found it worse than I'd imagined. My father's workbench, dismantled. His tool chest, emptied. Even a vintage motorcycle I'd been restoring for 3 years had been moved. I checked the storage app on my phone and saw Natalie had rented a unit 2 days ago. She'd stolen my inheritance. Everything that had been my family's. Everything that had sentimental value beyond money. She'd taken and hidden away. It wasn't about the items themselves. It was about hurting me. I called Patricia immediately. "She's taken items that aren't marital property," I said. "Family heirlooms. Things I inherited before we were married. Do you have documentation proving they were yours before the marriage?" Patricia asked. "Yes. Photos, insurance appraisals, estate document from my father's will." "Good. We'll file an emergency motion for return of separate property. She can't legally keep those items. But Levi, be prepared. She's going to claim they were gifts to the marriage or that you gave her permission to store them. I have security camera footage from this morning. She moved everything while I wasn't here. Even better, send me everything you have." I spent the next hour documenting what was missing, matching items to the estate inventory from my father's death 3 years ago. Every item was listed, photographed, and valued. The total came to roughly $35,000 in antiques and collectibles, not counting the sentimental value. But I wasn't done searching. In our bedroom, I found Natalie's new hiding place. Not the nightstand drawer this time, but a box in the back of her closet labeled winter clothes. Inside were more documents. Bank statements for accounts I'd never seen. Investment papers for stocks purchased in her name only. And a notarized document from 8 years ago. I opened it and felt my world tilt again. It was an adoption record. Natalie had given birth to a baby girl 8 years ago, before we'd met, and signed away her parental rights. The father listed on the birth certificate was Kyle Richards. They'd known each other for at least 8 years. This wasn't some new romance. This was a relationship that predated me, that had apparently never really ended. I sat on the floor of the closet, holding the adoption papers, trying to process what this meant. Natalie and Kyle had a child together. They'd given that child up for adoption. And then what? They'd stayed in touch, rekindled things while she was married to me. My phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. I know you're at the house. Get out. You have no right to be there anymore. She was watching. Probably had someone driving by. Or maybe she installed her own cameras. I took photos of the adoption papers, put everything back exactly as I'd found it, and left. But as I drove away, something became clear. This wasn't just about an affair. This was about Natalie trying to reclaim a life she'd walked away from 8 years ago. And I've been nothing more than a placeholder until she and Kyle figure out their second chance. The call came from Rachel on a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks after I filed for divorce. Her voice was different, harder. Levi, I need to tell you something, Rachel said. Natalie's been lying to me. About everything. What happened? I found out about the baby. The one she gave up 8 years ago. She never told me, Levi. I'm her sister, and she kept that secret for almost a decade. And when I confronted her about it, she tried to spin it like you'd invaded her privacy by finding the adoption papers. I was documenting missing property, I said. She stole my father's belongings. I know. She told me you took them. But I called the storage facility and confirmed she rented the unit. She's been lying to everyone, including me. And I'm done covering for her. Rachel told me everything. How Natalie had been coaching her on what to say if anyone asked questions. How she tried to get Rachel to lie to my attorney about the timeline of the affair. How she'd asked Rachel to claim I'd been emotionally abusive during our marriage. She wanted me to testify against you. Rachel said, her voice breaking. My own sister wanted me to perjure myself to help her take everything from you. I can't do this anymore, Levi. I won't. 2 days later, Rachel sent me an affidavit. In it, she detailed every conversation where Natalie had admitted to the affair, discussed her plans with Kyle, and acknowledged that she'd been preparing to divorce me for months before I found out. Rachel also confirmed that Natalie had told her the pregnancy wasn't mine. Patricia was thrilled. This is gold. A family member testifying against her. That destroys her credibility completely. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kyle Richards contacted me, but not with threats this time. He wanted to meet. We met at a coffee shop in neutral territory. Kyle looked exhausted, older than his 40 years. He sat down across from me without making eye contact. I need to be honest with you, Kyle said quietly. This whole thing has gotten out of control. Natalie isn't who I thought she was. What changed your mind? She's been using me the same way she used you. I thought we were building a future together, but she's been draining my accounts too. The apartment? I paid for everything. The trips? All my credit cards. She told me you were controlling her money, that she had nothing of her own. So I gave her access to mine. Kyle pulled out bank statements. Over 18 months, he'd spent $73,000 on Natalie. Rent, travel, jewelry, clothes. Everything. Last week, I found out she'd opened credit cards in my name, Kyle continued. She forged my signature on applications and ran up $40,000 in debt buying God knows what. When I confronted her, she said she'd tell everyone I forced her into the affair, that I manipulated her. So why tell me this? Because I'm done. And because you deserve to know she's planning something worse. She told me she's going to claim you were abusive, that you threatened her. She's building a whole false narrative to destroy you in court. Kyle handed me a flash drive. This has recordings. Conversations where she admitted the affair, talked about her plans, laughed about how easy it was to manipulate both of us. I recorded everything after I found out about the credit cards. I'm giving it to you because I need this to end. I took the flash drive, studying Kyle's face. He wasn't doing this out of guilt or morality. He was doing it for self-preservation. But his motives didn't matter. What mattered was the evidence. One more thing, Kyle said. The miscarriage? That was real. But the baby was mine. She knew it. The timing didn't match up with you. And she knew you'd figure it out eventually. That's why she wanted to frame the narrative around you causing it through stress. After Kyle left, I sat in my truck and listened to the recordings. Natalie's voice, clear and calculating, discussing how to maximize her settlement. How to paint me as unstable. How to use the miscarriage as leverage. Every word was damning. I drove straight to Patricia's office and handed her everything. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. With Rachel's affidavit, Kyle's recordings, and the mountain of evidence I collected, Natalie's attorney advised her settle. She got nothing from the business. The court ruled that Henderson Handcrafts was my separate property since I'd founded it before marriage with my own capital. Natalie received a small settlement for her design contributions, roughly $30,000, which barely covered her legal fees. The house was sold, proceeds split evenly. She had to return every item she'd stolen from my father's estate. The court also ordered her to repay $15,000 she'd taken from our joint account without authorization. Kyle never faced criminal charges for the affair, but he did face financial ruin when the credit card fraud came to light. Last I heard, he'd filed for bankruptcy and moved back in with his parents in Idaho. Natalie disappeared from Portland entirely. Rachel told me she'd moved to Phoenix, though they barely spoke anymore. The sister relationship had been fractured beyond repair by Natalie's lies. 8 months after filing for divorce, I stood in my new workshop, a converted warehouse space in southeast Portland. The sign above the door read, Henderson Artisan Goods, EST, 2018. I'd rebranded, refocused, and rebuilt. My customer base had grown by 30%. Apparently, people appreciated authenticity and the story of someone who'd survived betrayal and came out stronger. I didn't advertise my divorce, but word had spread through the artisan community. People respected that I'd handled it with dignity. I'd started dating again, nothing serious yet. A woman named Claire who owned a pottery studio had asked me to coffee twice. She was kind, straightforward, didn't play games. We took things slowly, which felt right. One afternoon, I received a letter for Natalie. It was forwarded from my old address, postmarked from Arizona. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won. The letter was 2 pages of justifications and excuses. How she felt trapped in our marriage. How Kyle had promised her a different life. How she'd made mistakes but felt I'd overreacted. She ended with, I hope someday you can forgive me for following my heart. I read it once, then fed it through the shredder in my office. Natalie wanted forgiveness. She could want. What she'd done wasn't about following her heart. It was about deception, manipulation, and greed. She tried to destroy me to build her new life, and when that failed, she wanted me to absolve her guilt. But I wasn't carrying her guilt anymore. I wasn't carrying anything of hers. I had my business. I had my peace. I had a life that was entirely mine, built on honesty and hard work. That was enough. Some evenings, when the workshop was quiet and the Portland rain drummed against the windows, I'd think about the man I'd been when Natalie left for that trip to Santa Fe. The man who believed every lie, who'd made excuses for red flags, who'd been too afraid of conflict to ask hard questions. That man was gone. In his place was someone stronger, someone who knew his worth, someone who'd learned that silence wasn't weakness and that walking away wasn't giving up. Natalie had said we'd talk when she got back. She planned the whole conversation, scripted every word, anticipated every reaction. But that conversation never happened, not the way she'd wanted it. And that was exactly how it should have been.